Hello, everyone. It's me once again giving what will be my final update on this game that I made for this board jam that no one asked me to do, and it's not affiliated with anyone. Just something I wanted to do this weekend while my wife was away. So this is my final update. So just wanted to give you an update of the things that I've done. I made another board. This is just a K tracker that's going to impact performance on an offensive scale. I created the positional cards. So this will tell you what position you play and then kind of what dice you will roll and what thresholds you need to meet in order to buy a card to help play in. These are very simple. These are just X's and O's. If you have an X, you are trying to throw the series. If you have an O, you are not. And then here, something I thought of actually kind of recently is these little secret ability things. These are little boosts that you can use or not use during the game in order to help you win or lose. So in some of these, you have to play the card to use the ability. So this one is a team leader and hits. So fives are +1 on the team track, and sixes are +2. So usually in the game, if you roll a six, that's an automatic +1 on your score track. But here it's fives and sixes. But you have to play this card in order to use the ability. So if you're trying to throw the series and you have this, you don't have to play it. You could just play the game regularly, and people might become suspicious that this could be a potential ability that's out there and someone's not using it. Especially if it gets later in the series. It's like, how come no one's using this ability? Because not all of these are going to end up in a game. There are some that are just like you have no ability to kind of throw off the scent. So that I thought that could be like a fun way to kind of get people to if they are throwing it but are given like kind of a ability that would really help, then they could decide like, well, I'm not going to use this, and that kind of gives you that power to do that or not. Even like this one, player manager, where you can have someone re-roll all of their dice, and you have to play this card in order to do that. So if you see that like you're trying to throw the series and you see someone have a really bad throw and you could use this, a lot of people might get suspicious that no one's using their player manager ability, especially if you play this game multiple times and know that that's a possibility in the game that could happen. So kind of a fun little thing I threw in there. So what I want to do now is I kind of want to walk you through how this game works, what my working title is, and kind of like the story behind it. It's just basically going to be a free-form word explosion towards you. So my working title for this game is Scandal at Jackson Field, which Jackson is a kind of a tribute to Shoeless Joe Jackson, kind of the most prominent player of the Black Sox scandal, and just kind of has that old-timey like newspaper headliney feel to it for a title of the game. So the basic premise is before the World Championships of this baseball series, this best of 9 series, there's a lot of rumors and a lot of grumblings that this series might be thrown by your team by certain players who are disgruntled with management for not getting paid a lot. So they have been conspiring with gamblers in order to throw the series so that they can make even more money. Now, this is almost like a little retrospective of that series. So what's going to happen is, as a player, if you are not throwing the series, it is up to you, one, to try to win the series. If you win the series, you win the game as a player. And if you don't win the series, you have to figure out who is throwing the series. That is your kind of like your last gasp effort. Because if you don't figure out, like, one, you've lost the series. Two, the people who get away with it are going to win, so they're going to win. But as we saw with in a lot of scandals, like, it doesn't matter if you were in on it or not, you can be implicated. So it's good to know that if you did lose the series, who was the ones that are actually doing it, so that you can kind of turn them in and maybe save yourself from a lifetime banishment of professional baseball, and just having that kind of scar of throwing a series. So that's the basic premise. So those are your win conditions. One, win the series. If you're not trying to throw the whole series, win the series. If you aren't trying to throw the series and you lose, figure out who was throwing the series. And then if you are trying to throw the series, your goal is to lose the series. You're actively trying to lose in whatever way you can without kind of giving yourself away. And there's many ways that you can do that. There's a lot of secret things you can do that can kind of help do that. So the basic play is you each person will get a one of these positional cards. You need to have at least one pitcher, you need to have a catcher, and then you need to have one infielder and one outfielder. And then everything else, it doesn't matter. But it's a 5 to 10 player game. The more people that you have in the game, the more people are trying to throw the series. So 5 or 6 people playing the game, you're going to have 3 people who are throwing the series, or 2 people who are throwing the series. If you have 7 or 8, you're going to have 3 people throwing the series, and if you have 8 or 9 or 10, or 9 and 10, you are going to have 4 people throwing the series. So this is a up to 10 player game. You're going to get your what position you're playing. You're going to get if you are throwing the series or not, and if you have any special abilities that come with that player. And then you get into actually playing a game. And how that works is each player will get one turn, and you're going to have 10 turns. And we'll say 10. Basically, each position is going to get a chance to dictate what happens in the game. Like that kind of. So the starting pitcher, they're going to do their roles that are going to basically say, like, this is how I contributed to the game. Now, a lot of times in the baseball game, there's a lot of outs, but there are some action things that happen as well. So depending on the dice that you have, you're going to roll, and then if you are able to, so like for the starting pitcher, their defense is a 5+. So if they roll a black dice, they could draw a defensive card, or a couple of defensive cards, as it were, and pick one to put into the game pile of what happens. And then I'll keep going through, and then everybody will do it. You're going to do that 10 times. Everyone's going to get their roll. And that should lead to a very quick game because it's going to be pretty easy to know like if you're going to buy a card or if you're not going to buy a card because the threshold, and if you don't, it just is an automatic thing that happens on the other score tracker. So the idea is that the games themselves, the baseball games of this game, do not last very long. At most, they last like 5 minutes. If they last longer than that during play testing, then definitely have to figure out a calibration to kind of do that. But I was just kind of rolling some dice and kind of doing it. I think it took me like 5-10 minutes, but 10 minutes was more because I was still trying to figure out some balancing stuff. So I think in 5 minutes, you can get this done. Now, after the game, you're going to see where your opponent tracker is and where your opponent tracker is. And if you are further than your opponent, then you're going to win the game, and then you win one of the games in the series. And the first team to win 5 games, because in the early 1900s they played 9-game series in the World Series, they are the ones that win. Now, after a win, nothing happens. Everything stays the same because all is well, nothing bad is happening. After losses, then you can have kangaroo court, which is a big thing in baseball. And that's when someone is designated to essentially decide, like pick 2 people who are possibly throwing the series, or basically pick maybe it's 1 or 2 people. But basically, like I said, I'm trying to figure a lot of these rules out as I'm just saying them here. But basically, pick one person to say, like, I don't think you are doing your part to win this series. And they can try to accuse them, and there can be arguments. There can be a lot. People can just go back and forth. There's essentially one person who's going to be assigned the judge. Someone's going to be the judge of kangaroo court. I don't know how we're going to decide that just yet. I think that could just be a random starting point and then just moving it around to the left to determine who's going to lead kangaroo court and who is going to determine if something. Now, if a majority of the people agree that this person is potentially guilty, it will be that person who is the judge who can look at what their ability is. Now, if they see that their ability is something that could be helping the team, and that's the other thing too, is like a lot of these abilities are things that you have to play right away if something happens. Like one of them is if you roll a 2, that's an out. You can't use that in your to purchase cards, or it can't be used as like kind of just a general out. It's used as a strikeout, which goes against you in the long run. So if that happens, you have to play that card right away. So a lot of people are going to get kind of sussed out right away based on that. But the other thing I think which makes it interesting is like I'm making all of the offensive, defensive, and pitching cards. Those are their own color. So as you see that there's a lot of, if there's only like one card really being played, you can kind of keep an eye out and be like, okay, there's only one person playing defensive cards that round. And there was a lot of errors in they put like 2 or 3 errors in there. I think there's something going on here. where they're trying to throw the game because they're not putting the right they're deciding those cards, and they have to justify. It's like, well, I was getting the bad cards, or they might have an ability that could have prevented something like that from happening. So they can see their ability to see if they're telling the truth of doing that. So I think that's kind of another layer that can kind of maybe help with the game as well. But that's going to go until someone wins 5 games. So it could be a 5 game sweep, which I don't think would happen. I think that'd be really hard to do. I think it's probably going to be in that like 6 to 8 game range, and then maybe 9 if it gets that crazy. But at the end, then the other thing is I don't know how we're going to determine who who how you vote to say who are the people that are the ones that are throwing the game. That can be really tough. So I don't know how that's going to work out, but I think um, once again it's going to come down to a judge who determines, and that'll probably be in like the kangaroo court style. They're gonna probably see like, okay, we have 4 people who are throwing games, and then that means you're gonna have 6 people who have to unanimously the 4 people who are accused, they have to basically say, yeah, they're out of the discussion. The other 6 people are going to have to decide like these are the ones that did it. But you have to basically pick the 4 people that are throwing. So hopefully there'd be enough evidence that would show that that is happening, which would be very hard to do. I think that's why because if you don't pick the right one, that one person's going to say, do you think these are the 4 people? And then if it's yes or no, then a unanimous won't work. So I think that's how you have to basically say like these are the 4 people, and then everyone has to agree that's the 4. And then if it's like, well, I'm not the one, and then that person's like, yeah, they did it, then like they'll probably be a thing there. But I think that's eventually how it's going to work. So I have a game here, which is exciting. Hopefully, I can get to play test it with some friends and family at some point. But I think I did it. So the game is Scandal at Jackson Field. That's what I'm going to go with until I think of a better name. Hopefully, some play testing will help me determine if this is a viable game and that could actually work. But I think for the most part, it's a game. It has that secret identity aspect. It has kind of a game within a game aspect, which is kind of fun. But I think the one thing I like about it is if you tell someone like this is a game that's about baseball, there's a lot of people who are like, I don't want to play that game. But if you could tell people this is a game about how you could screw up a baseball game on purpose, they might actually like that a little bit. If they know they can kind of like wreak havoc on a baseball game in kind of a non-traditional sense, I think that would be more appealing to people. So I think that might be a little helpful with like some of the replay value as well, or just to get more people interested in wanting to play as well. So that's it. That's my game. I completed it. I did what I wanted to do. I wanted to have something that I could play test by the end of 48 hours. It was like 51 hours, but whatever. I slept in some of that, so back off. But that's the game. If you watch these updates, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. That's the game. And I look forward to showing it off. Maybe I'll have more updates of like how playtesting has gone. But as far as like the game jam aspect of this, it's over. I did it. Yeah. So that's all I got. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.